Give Up Show with Jacquie Wayans. Inspiration through word and song for you.
Hi, I'm Jacquie Wayans, and you're tuning in to another episode of Don't Give Up and Win. As you know, this show is designed for those of us who are pushing towards a dream while pushing away life's challenges. So I must tell you up front that this episode is not for children. If you do have children under the age of 13 in the room, I would advise you to please hold this to the side or to have a conversation with them about it when we're done, because we're approaching the subject of suicide. Our guest today had many challenges when she was growing up, and it led her to a space and a place where she felt that she didn't belong, that there was no need for her to be in this world. But she was very wrong, and thankfully God stepped in to let her know. So welcome, Tamara, to our show. Tamara.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you for being our guest.
Thank you for having me on the show. I truly appreciate it.
Well, I'm excited not for the topic, but for a chance for people to hear your story and understand that they are not alone.
Right.
And that God doesn't have favorites.
Yes.
If he was able to speak to you right now, if they're watching this show, he's speaking to them as well.
Yes,
Okay?
definitely.
So talk to us a little bit. You lost your mother
Yes.
at a very young age, 6 years old.
Correct.
How did you find out that your mom had passed? What was that situation?
Sure. I lived with my mom, and for some reason, this was during Christmas time, so my mom had decided that she wanted me to spend Christmas with my grandmother, which I thought was a little odd because who doesn't want to spend Christmas with their mom? Right. So I went with my grandmother, and on our way returning back home, we came home, and even my grandmother kind of was giving like little off signals, like this seems a little weird. So we came in the door, and I had a brand new watch, and I remember it just like yesterday.
Right.
And I ran to the bed and I said, "Mommy, Mommy," and I'm shaking her, and I'm like, "Mommy, Mommy, look at my watch." And she was cold as ice, is all I remember.
Right.
And my grandmother went to her and just closed her eyes and said, "She's not here anymore, she's dead." And we left the apartment. And we went, at that time, there were no cell phones or anything like that. So we went to the payphone, and my grandmother called the ambulance to come and read of my mom out the building. And we went back to my grandmother's house, and I didn't understand. Right. I'm like, "Grandma, what do you mean? I want to go home." I remember crying, and I'm saying, "I want to go home. I want to be with my mom." And she kept saying over the dinner table, "You're not going to see Mommy again. You're going to live here now." And that was the end of our conversation.
So that was the end of your conversation. Was there a grieving process that you were able to go through? Were you allowed to cry, talk it out, or was it just kind of shut down that these are the facts and let's move on?
Unfortunately, now my grandmother did the best that she could, but now that I think about it, she was going through things too. Her daughter had died, so I really couldn't talk about it anymore in the house, and my grieving process was behind closed doors.
Okay.
And whenever I want to talk about my mom, she would just kind of hush me up. "We're not going to talk about that right now." So I didn't really have a grieving process starting from 6 years old.
So when your grieving process is behind closed doors, what are the things that you end up saying to yourself?
If I wasn't alive, then my mom would be alive.
Really?
So you need to die.
That was the conclusion that you came to?
That was the conclusion I came to.
Wow. Wow. It's so important to not just, it's so important to let kids grieve, right? All of us, adults, we know we need to grieve, and sometimes we try to muffle it down, but kids, over and over again, I hear that whether it's a divorce or a separation or someone moves to Timbuktu, kids at that gentle age tend to internalize and feel like somehow it's their fault that this is happening.
Definitely.
So you're living with Grandma. Where was Dad in the scope of the picture?
My father was, unfortunately, an alcoholic.
Okay.
And he was on the street, so I never really got to interact with my father very much. And when I did, it was actually his funeral. And I really didn't have good ties at all.
Right.
I didn't get to bring closure. Okay. And I felt abandoned.
Right.
So I didn't get to bring closure to that situation either.
I heard you say that you felt almost as if your dad was pushing you away.
Correct. Because he actually, I have a sister, so he gravitated, I don't know, because maybe my sister was older, so he gravitated toward my sister. And then me, it was just like, it was a forced, I felt like it was always like a forced effort. Like my sister would say, oh, your father wants to speak to you, but it was never something he would initiate and do.
Right. Yeah. Right. So here you are, you lose your mother at a young age, you're estranged from your father all the way till he passes away also while you're still young.
Yes.
And you're internalizing all of this, and the message that you keep saying to yourself is,
It's my fault.
it's my
I
fault.
did something wrong. I shouldn't be here.
So, when we come back, we'll hear more of her journey. I'd like to tell you that we're about to hear some wonderful things, but not quite yet. Her journey was much longer. So when we return, we'll talk some more with Tamara.
Yeah, so that was my trip to Cuba. It was really fun.
That sounds fantastic.
So how have you been?
It's been tough. I've been fighting with depression for a long time.
I've got to. I really have to go, so I'll talk to you later.
One in 5 people experience some form of mental illness.
One,
2, 3, 4,
5.
Stigma surrounding mental illness is a major barrier that prevents people from seeking help or treatment. You don't have to go through it alone. Be there for a friend with a mental health condition. Raising mental health awareness about how to help a friend provides hope and contributes to ending the silence. For more information about mental health, visit mentalhealthamerica.net.
Hi, we're back, and we're here discussing a very serious topic, the topic of suicide. So I advise you, if you have children 13 or under, to please either have a really serious discussion with them or escort them out of the room for now. But before we went on break, Tamara, we were talking about the fact that you were internalizing all of these emotions, and you felt that it was your fault, and that if somehow you were just not here, things would be better. So when someone is thinking that way, the obvious result would be to start to do harm to themselves so that they're no longer here. So what did that look like for you?
For me, from the moment my mom had died, because these feelings of insecurity and these feelings of I shouldn't be here, it actually started from the moment she died. When I remember when I went home back to my grandmother, it started little small things like self-mutilation. And in school, my teacher couldn't understand like what was wrong with me. I remember just staring into space, but it was always a feeling like you shouldn't be here. Unfortunately, my first suicide attempt was popping pills, and something as simple as somebody would take for a headache. I used it to try to end my life. I wound up getting my stomach pumped, and when I arrived back out of the hospital, it was the feeling of, why am I here? God, why did you do this to me? Just end my life already.
Right. Yeah. So again, was there a conversation about what happened? So the fact that you tried to do that. I have to say, I was 11 when I had my first real attempt, and also pills as well. And interestingly enough, our stories are very different. As I was dozing off, very dramatic, with my hands across my chest, ready, so I could be found in peace, that kind of thing. I heard an audible voice say that you're not going to die, you're going to wake up. And if you would just hold on, I promise you, you're going to be loved, right? So I heard that, but nevertheless, when I woke up and I explained what I did, we did go to the doctor and get my medical checkup. But the response was kind of like she must have just seen something on TV and she was trying to, because she saw something on TV, that kind of thing. It was kind of very much dismissed, right? So for you, was there any kind of conversation around the fact that you tried to take your life?
Honestly, no. Again, my grandmother everything was kind of just quiet in the house concerning death, mental awareness, suicide.
Right.
Everything was just really hush hush.
Right. Yes. And the reason why it's important for me to do a show like this is because it's still very hush hush. People don't want to talk about it because, one, it's uncomfortable.
Yes.
But two, we're not sure what to say and what advice to provide.
Right.
So you had that first attempt. You don't really have a solution. You're still in the same emotional place.
Yes.
In fact, you've probably got more on you now. And somehow, though, you made it to college.
Yes. The strange thing is that while on the inside, my world was tearing apart, on the outside, I wanted to prove that I was perfect. So how can you hide what's going on the inside? Get straight A's. Not knowing the straight A's would take me a very long way. But in order to hide, my books became my mask.
Wow.
And while I'm crying on the inside, I'm saying to myself, Tamara, you can't let anyone see what you're going through. So you make sure you go to school, you make sure you get straight A's, you make sure you get a scholarship, you make sure you have a good job, even though on the inside you're dying.
Wow. I am glad you shared that, because we often think that it's the person acting out or the one who's withdrawn or whatever, but you could be right in front of somebody and they have no clue
what's going on.
I understand that. I absolutely do. And sometimes you wonder, can people really see me that I'm here, right?
Yes.
Okay, so you're in college, you're moving on that leg, and unfortunately you get some more bad news, and you find out what?
Yeah. I was in my freshman year of college, got accepted to the College of New Rochelle, and I was in my dormitory and actually in the classroom, and they pulled me out of class to tell me that your grandmother has now passed away. I fainted. And I said, what is this? I don't have a mother, I don't have a father, and then who you gave me, I thought was like a mom and dad. She was like my world. She's gone. And I said, I'm done. I'm leaving school.
Yeah.
I'm done. God, I can't do this anymore.
Right.
And it was actually my sister who convinced me, you have to go back to school. Grandma would not want this, and that was the words that stuck with me. Grandma would not want this, which is true, because she couldn't read and she couldn't write. So she always told me, I want you to do better than me.
So I'm going to accelerate your timeline just a little bit here. She graduates from college. She gets into graduate school. She's got a boyfriend. Things are looking great and wonderful, again, on the outside. But talk to me about the night. I can see it's very real. Talk to me about the night that you said goodbye to him.
Me and my boyfriend at the time, we were just having a regular date night. And the feelings are there again of, you really don't belong here. You really don't need to be here. And it's funny about the masking, because I'm speaking to him. He's not getting something's wrong. He's thinking it's himself. So he's like, things are gonna get better. And I'm like, I'm just not feeling well. I don't know what's wrong. Not realizing when I said goodbye to him, I really meant goodbye. I said, I have everything on the outside looks good, but on the inside, I can't do this anymore. And I went upstairs to my dormitory, and I heard voices say, jump out the window. And I went to the window, the 13th floor, and I looked down, and I said, this is it. And I was on the ledge, and I heard a voice that said, stop. And I never heard that voice before. And I just got down on my knees and said, God, I can't do this. You have to take this from me. And from that moment, I never had another suicide attempt again.
When we come back, we will hear what God has done in Tamara North's life.
Sometimes it can feel like you're alone. Sometimes it can feel like nothing at all. Sometimes there's nothing on your mind. And other times, your brain seems to be overthinking. It doesn't mean you're crazy. You shouldn't feel ashamed or hopeless if you have a mental illness. You're not alone. Mental health illnesses affect everyone. Men, women, children of all ages. Treatment can help. Self-care is important. Your life is important. It's time to talk about it.
Welcome back to Don't Give Up and Win. That's right, it's all about the win. I can tell you to don't give up all day long, but at some point you want to see results for hanging in there and holding on. And what this show is about is telling you that if you're holding on to God's unchanging hand, that He will pull you through and that there will be a light at the end of the tunnel. So that moment when you heard that voice and you fell down to your knees, that was your real encounter with the Lord. That was your real encounter with getting to know Him for yourself.
Yes, it was, definitely. And from that moment on, I dedicated my life to God. I went to church, started going back, started reading my word, stayed focused on Him, because you know something? The enemy never really leaves. He's always still there. He's waiting for you to slip to come back.
Of course.
So it's like that thorn in your side.
Yeah.
So I have to stay close to God so that I can avoid those pitfalls.
Very smart to say. I always, I look at superhero movies and stuff like that, and it amazes me how the bad guy, the villain, never gets tired. Like they're relentless. They keep coming, no matter what.
Right.
And we tend to sometimes put our heels up and say, okay, we're good now. And though the Lord does have us, you got to stay by His side. You got to stay close.
Now's time for the Don't Give Up and Win takeaway moment.
After I graduated from New York University, I actually stayed with my aunt's caretaker. She was 95, and her name was Miss Long, and she lived in the projects on 132nd Street, 131st Street, and it's ironic because every day I look and I go out with my mother right up the street. Talk about full circle. And I stayed with her until I saved enough money to get married to my new husband. And unfortunately, after my wedding, she passed. We stayed together for 3 years before I had my son, Tavel Sal. He's now 5.
Skylanders, Superchargers.
And then my daughter came in 2013, and she is 3 years old. Yay! I'm a Christian lifestyle blogger, and I write I encourage people, inspire them, and try to motivate and empower them to just do that, but get rid of fear and have faith in everything that we do. Just this past month, I was at Bronx Community College, and I did motivational talk to the incoming freshman students. And so I'm starting to open myself up more to speaking to people about my testimony. Being a mom without a mom is hard. I can't call and be like, oh, Mom, I'm just tired. Can you cook a meal? Or, Mom, please come over here. Tell me what to do. What did I look like as a child? Does she look like? I don't get any of that. Do you love us?
Yes.
Oh, God is first and foremost, and then we instill that in our kids through how we interact with God.
If you could talk to yourself around 10, 15 years ago, what would you say?
I would say it's not your fault. I would say you're worth it, and you have a lot to offer.
I'll rise up, rise like the day. I'll rise up in spite of the ache. I will rise 1,000 times again, and we'll rise up. I like the waves. We'll rise up.
Feel compelled to write this book?
I experienced a breakdown about 8 or 9 years ago, just very debilitating depression. When I was led to get help and I heard the words clinical depression, it was like a bolt of lightning that hit me that was like, it has a name.
Yeah.
And I'm a social worker by training, but I just never knew that all that was happening to me had a name. I began to speak about it because I have a strong belief in God, but I never thought I heard his voice before. People say, oh, I talked to God, and I was like, okay, well, I never heard him say anything. But one day I heard clearly, you must tell your story. This is my love for humanity and a special extra dose for Black folks because we see mental illness as a stigma, as a flaw, as a character weakness. We are very faith-based people, so all you hear is I take it to the Lord in prayer. I know that it was my God who led me to the right psychiatrist.
Yes.
Do you know what I mean?
Yes, I do.
So I had to, after that kind of response, and I know there are lots of books out there about mental health, but there were very, very few, if any, that really spoke uniquely to the Black American experience, So that's why I had to do it.
So you're a wife, and are you also a mom?
Yes, I am. I have 2 beautiful children. One is 3 and one is 6. I have a girl and a boy.
Nice, nice. How's that process been for you?
Not easy, because I'm a mom without a mom.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually want to start an organization for other moms who are motherless daughters. Because you know something? What you've gone through is not really for you. It's really to help someone else.
Right.
So I'm really not supposed to stay quiet about what I've gone through. I'm supposed to help someone else along the way.
Absolutely. And you do that through your blog. Tell us a little bit about that and how you were able to start blogging.
Sure.
Yeah.
I started when I was a stay-at-home mom, and I said, oh my goodness, I'm a stay-at-home mom. I don't want to be here all day just hearing kids in my ear. So I love writing.
Okay.
So I took to paper and pen, but instead to the computer. And I started writing down my thoughts, writing down my feelings on my everyday journey as being a mom. And that turned into telling people about hair, telling people about parenting, telling people about marriage. And then before you know it, I became a blogger.
And motivational speaker.
Yes,
absolutely.
I actually, the last event that I spoke at was at CUNY Brooklyn College?
Okay.
No. CUNY City College.
Okay.
And I spoke to them, and I spoke about suicide prevention.
And that's a wonderful group, as you know, to speak with the college age piece, because there is that feeling that if you just make it to college, you're now safe, that somehow you're out of the danger zone. But sometimes that's the space and place where things happen. I was really fortunate that my college had a full psychology team available. And when we were freshmen, they took the stigma away. They said, listen, we have this team here for you. You need anything, don't hesitate to go. Right? If you have too much stress from classes or life or whatever, get there. And that was really great because it stayed in our mind, so that when the stresses did come, there was no stigma like, oh my gosh, you know. And I love the fact that you're being open about where you are, because it takes the stigma away. One of our producers here said, as we were doing the show today, they said, you know, millions of people will probably look at this broadcast and relate to your story. And while it's sad that that number is so high,
you're an overcomer.
I'm glad that you're an overcomer, and I want you to know that through the strength and the blood and the sacrifice of Jesus Christ, you can be an overcomer too. I love saying Romans 10:9 and 10, that if you confess with your mouth that Jesus Christ is Lord and believe in your heart that God has raised him from the dead, you will be saved. It takes but a moment, and that moment you took, and it changed your life forever. I want you to take a minute, look into the camera, and talk to anyone who's watching right now who thinks, I don't even see why I should be here. What would you say to them?
I would say there's a scripture, Philippians 4:13, that I always use. I can do all things through Christ who strengtheneth me. My life has not been easy, and I'm sure your life is not easy, but you're here for a purpose and you're here for a reason. It took me a while to understand that, but I'm telling the story so that you can see that your life has meaning, your life has purpose, your life matters. So if there's anyone on here who feel like your life doesn't matter, I'm here. I'm a testimony. If I can do it, you can do it. Your life matters.
I like that. I like that your life matters. You know, we have all these hashtags about lives matter, and it's true.
Your life, yeah.
It is absolutely true, but life itself matters. And one of the most beautiful things that I was reminded of just the other day is that you're not only here for your own purpose, but you're part of God's purpose. He has a legacy for you. He has a plan for you. And so you can't cut that short.
No.
You got to see that through and see what he has for you, right?
Definitely.
Thank you so much for sharing with us today.
Thank you for having me.
Awesome. Please tune into her blog and be encouraged, especially if you are a mom yourself. And, you know, all of us would like to exchange a little part of our story, but the story you have is so that you can turn around and bless others. Go ahead, be your own best hero, because the greatest hero of all said that you were worth it when he gave his life for you on the cross. Until next time.
It's not over until God